So back up on, you said into your 90s. I got to share a story, a patient story, and he was an 89-year-old patient, and he's still alive. He must be in his mid 90s now, and he was on testosterone. And when he was 89, and he was actually a doctor also, and he'd been retired for quite a while, and he was just one of those guys, you know. My grandma used to always say, I can't wait to get old. And this was like when she was in her 50s, because you can say anything you want and you don't get in trouble for it, right? So this guy, I mean, he was an 89-year-old man that could just say anything, and he did. And anyway, he came in, he goes, oh yeah, no, if I don't have regular sex, he said, put a bullet in my brain. His words, not mine. It was that important to him and his partner. And I just remind people of that, because it is, and I said it early on, I think in some ways it is as important as food and water.
Yeah,
you know,
I think so too.
To a lot of people, especially.
Yeah, I had a little lady that I met last week, and we were just having a conversation, you know, and talking about marriage. And I was like, hey, I said, this might be kind of odd. Do you mind if I ask a personal question? And she says, well, I'll probably answer it. That's okay. And I said, well, you don't have to. And I said, because she was in her 80s. And I said, are you still intimate with your husband? And she goes, well, no, unfortunately, we're not. And she said, but if we could be, we would be. He had a series of bad prostate surgeries 15 years ago, and, you know, issues and whatnot. And so I was talking, oh, well, have you looked at penile implants? And we were just, you know, the conversation kind of went off track, and she was just, oh, I didn't know that existed. And, oh no, send me some information. And I mean, it was just kind of, okay, we're having this conversation, but it was fun. It was neat. It was like, no, I mean, she's in her 80s, and they both would if they could, you know. Obviously, they're intimate in other ways and whatnot, but she's like, no. She said he's tried to help me out, and she's like, I just feel guilty because he can't. So it's just better if we both don't. So.
And that's why it's important for us as healthcare professionals to ask those questions, so those people can be open and honest with us, because a lot of times it's the first time they're able to. Many times. Yeah.
No, she's like, oh, I love being able to talk about this.
Yeah. That's cool. And she's in her 80s. That's awesome. Yeah. I love, and I've got, there's a story a couple months ago, actually. And this guy called me, and he was having some issues with his testosterone. He just had some questions. And so I asked him the leading questions, like, well, how's your sex life? He goes, oh, it's great. It's better than it's ever been. And his wife, they're in their 70s. And his wife's in the background and said, tell him we don't want to stop what we're doing. You know, we're not going to stop that, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I mean, it's cool to hear this from 70-year-olds. I mean, his wife is yelling at him. It's like, no, we are not going to stop having sex. I mean, that is not what we're talking about. That's just cool to hear. And it's a reminder that we can have healthy, regular sex well into our 70s and 80s.
One of the things that I didn't talk about, as far as, I mean, obviously we talked about some of the benefits of regular sex, the aspect of positive cardiac benefits. So I wanted to put the caveat in there that, okay, regular sex can lower blood pressure. I found a study that said sex at least 3 times a week lowers the chance of having a heart attack or stroke by 50%. That being said, infrequent sex can strain your heart. So if you're one of those people that you're only having it on birthdays or, you know, every few months, you might have more of a chance for having a heart attack because of the strain on your heart than if you were having regular sex. So I thought that was just something to kind of.
It is interesting, and I'm going to comment on that. I think it's a little bit. Is it a chicken or the egg thing? You know, is it that some people don't have regular sex because and these same people are at risk for cardiac disease, and so they've already got maybe erectile dysfunction, or they're not healthy already, so that's why? Or is it also that regular sex keeps us healthy? I think it's a little bit of both, honestly.
I think so too. Yeah, I would agree there.
Yeah.
I found a couple other funny studies that we didn't get into, but there was a 2016 study that showed men who had more ejaculations, like 4 to 5 times a week, were less likely to develop prostate cancer than men who had 4 to 5 per month. Daily sex can take 7 years off your face, improve skin elasticity, and it can prolong life expectancy, longevity. It said people who climaxed 3 times a week had a 50% reduced chance of dying for any medical reason in one study that I read.